Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. So in this episode, we pick up right where last week's episode left off with the whole finding Chantal. Fortunately enough, she's still alive. I was like I said, I didn't know, in that situation. I was like, it could have been either way. Obviously, like, I heard a line from this episode, basically with the whole conversation between Sherlock and Belle, that I was like, made me kind of was like, oh, she might be dead. Because the last week episode, I kind of put up like, oh, maybe like it's actually Roy's body. But then like I heard that particular line of like Charlotte's like, I know what it's like to be, almost basically, saying like he knows what it's like to be there. Because in this particular situation, like Belle can't do anything because it's like, obviously, you have Gregson and tell him, hey, you can't be on this case because you're too close to it and everything. Which Belle, obviously he understands. He's like, yeah, I understand. I shouldn't be. And Charlotte's like, yeah, I know what you're doing. Like, I know how you feel right now. You're angry and you want to do something. The fact of the matter is, like, because Sherlock was there when it came to the whole Irene situation. And we saw what happened when, because, like, he said, like, when he went through a similar situation, when Irene originally died, quote unquote died, the fact of the matter is, he spiraled. And obviously, eventually, he did what he did to M, like he did. It's been such a long time. I don't remember if that was actually his name, the guy that Sherlock actually thought killed Irene, or was that just like actually Moriarty's name, but it's just like he always associated it with this guy, or I can't remember. But nevertheless, and Sherlock's like, yeah, you're not like me. The fact of the matter is you're different. The fact is you have people that care about you who will see justice done for you. And it's like it's such a beautiful thing of everyone coming in together. The case was a lot all over the place because it's like, obviously from the very beginning, you're like, obviously Roy did it. But then it's like, because to me, I thought the entire situation is going to be like, okay, Roy's going to pretend like he didn't do it. And obviously he's going to have loopholes and people protecting him to make sure that he didn't. I was claiming that he didn't do it, but then in the middle of the investigation, like, because we ended up finding out, like, he severely hurt her, punched her. Well, she was not punched; she was apparently hit with a weapon multiple times. Someone even peed on her bed, and it's like, even the lawyer that was representing him, who it turns out is actually the lawyer he was working with. From when he was trying to originally get Chantel's job messed with, like when the episode where we originally saw him, the law firm he was working for then is actually kind of representing him now. So interesting. And I like the way Joan put it. It's like kind of like a slime ball representing another like extremely terrible person, essentially. So, but nevertheless, but Roy was claiming his innocence because it's like, yeah, he literally peed on there's his urine's on the bed. So it's like, why would he do that? He's a cop. He knows how DNA works like that. But it's like, hey, in a fit of rage, anyone can do anything. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And then on top of that, like, I mean, to me, I was like, oh, but then it's like, because like at the beginning, like it never crossed my mind. I'm like, oh, he's being set up or something. And it's like, no, either that or he hired someone. But then when he said that, I was like, holy crap, you're being set up. Wow, becomes even. I mean, there was even a moment when he actually went to the hospital and he's trying to visit Chantal, and then Bella's like, yo, what the hell are you doing here? He's like, yo, like bringing up the fact that he's trying to claim that like Belle's the one that did this. He's trying to set him up and stuff like that. It's like, it's you who did this to Chantal. I was like, really, dude? Really? This coming from the guy that's trying to mess with her life? Or mess with the person that she cares about life too? It's like, really, you gonna come at him like this? Like, I can't believe he has such a mentality to think like that. It's like, just because you were a piece of crap significant other doesn't make him a piece of crap significant other like you. You're two very different people. You're two very different cops too. But the fact is that he would do it, I was like, okay, are you doing that? Like, I was like, something's going to happen and he's going to try and set Belle up. And then there was a whole like, oh, he's dead situation. It's like, oh, he shot himself. It's like, well, that's no suicide. You know that immediately. But it was like the turn of events like that. I was like, this case keeps evolving and turning. And I should have known they weren't going to make it so simple as it's just like Roy did it. I mean, that's too easy. But for him to go out of his way to point out, like, I mean, and obviously Belle's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is me and Roy headed out of the hospital, so obviously if you guys want to investigate me, it's like, dude, we're not going to investigate you. We're not stupid. We're good at our jobs, so we know you had nothing to do with this. And it blew my mind that, like, it took that direction. Because anyone would automatically think like, okay, he's setting you up for something. Like, this has to be part of his plan. Like, but I think what really motivated him to do that is he's bringing her flowers and everything because obviously he didn't really know what her condition was in because she was unconscious because they had to basically bring down the swelling in her head. But it's because Gregson had brought up the fact that it's like, oh yeah, when Chantal wakes up, we're going to ask her, was there any like physical abuse in your relationship? And what do you think is she's going to say? I'm assuming like she was going to say yes, and that's why he was going there to try and be like, hey, you know I didn't do this to you. Hey, when these people ask you about if I ever hit you, come on, dude, like, you know, it's like, why would she do you a favor anyway? Like, after everything you've done already, why would she want to help you out? Nevertheless, moving on, we do have Sherlock bringing in Bell because to him it's like, yo, you need to keep busy because the fact of the matter is that you're very on edge. You obviously, he's caught between, like, a rock and a hard place because it's like, he can't investigate because, you know, obviously he needs to lay low, but he can't do anything at the hospital either because he's going crazy. Because even like Jonah's like, stop trying to Google medical stuff because all that's going to do is bring you back to a bad place. You're going to start seeing terms and stuff that you don't know if it's necessarily connected to Chantal's condition, but you'll start thinking, you know, it's just like those people. What's that? It's a medical condition where it's like, not necessarily a medical condition, but it's a thing where it's like when you start looking up symptoms or something, you start assuming that you have that particular sickness. So it's like kind of like in a kind of inverse of that, where he'll automatically start thinking like, oh man, this is this and that, and like, oh, all these bad things associated with what Chantal has is like, this might be happening to her. It's like, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. Stop doing that. But so Sherlock wants to put him to work, especially when he brought up an interesting conversation when it's like, yeah, like he's like, Bell was kind of, he's like, I saw your disapproved look on your face, like when you found out about Roy, and it's like, yeah, Roy, when I heard he was dead, when he killed himself, I was like, yeah, I wasn't too beaten up about it. He was a piece of crap person and stuff like that. But then, like, on top of that, you tell me, like, he was actually murdered and everything, and the fact is that means, what I'm really pissed about is the fact is that Chantal's, the person who hurt Chantal really is, the real person who hurt her is still out there. But then Charlotte's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. The fact is you were displeased because you, at the very least, you were hoping that you'd be able to, you know, hurt him before he died. So, whether he, like, you know, whether or not he probably even if it, you know, even probably before finding out, obviously that applies before finding out that, you know, he was set up, but probably even more so afterwards because it was like, you're such a piece of crap. You did all this stuff trying to ruin our lives, and it's like, I hate you so much for it. So, but so he tries to help him out because obviously he start investigating this guy, Yukov, essentially like the people that Roy was working for. It's this big law firm that deals with divorces and stuff like that. So they start investigating the husband in this particular case, the husband that Roy was actually looking into. Is like, oh, maybe he got back at Roy because like Roy started investigating him, and it would have cost him like a crap ton of money because like he would have to owe his wife, like, because he has like 20 million in offshore accounts and stuff like that, supposedly. Apparently this particular guy used to get physical with his ex-wife. And so what ends up happening is, obviously, Bell and then Sherlock kind of Bell talks to him while Sherlock breaks into his office. And even Bell's like, yeah, you're slipping, dude, because I heard you break something in his office and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, yeah, it was like a coffee mug or something I was getting. I was like, did he? And I was like, nah, he didn't notice. And so, I mean, what we end up finding out, like, Bell was told to kind of lay low, keep away from Yukov, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, like, it's like, give us time, have faith in me. The fact that, like, trust me in this situation where we will gather the evidence, because basically he's going to the Cayman Islands or something like that. He'll be back in like 3 days. It's like, in that time, we build up our case. Bell says, okay, but then we see him kind of like waiting outside the dude's place. He's putting on gloves. He has his gun, but he puts it in the glove compartment box, and he's about to walk away. So at the very least, you know, doesn't have his gun, so he's thinking somewhat rationally. But then all of a sudden, someone walks up and steals his car. I was like, wow, that's very fortuitous, because like you would have gone over there, and he gets a call. It's like Sherlock calling. It's like, yeah, it's like, wait, what? Wait, that was you? Shut up. I was like, wow, dude. Basically hurt his leg to the point where it's like he wouldn't be able to get on a flight because he messed up his leg that badly. But Sherlock did that mainly so Bell wouldn't do what he was going to do. Because like because from the beginning, Bell kind of figures out. He's like, yeah, I kind of lied about, you know, working being the best, you know, option for you right now. And Bell figures out, he's like, it wasn't to get me busy, it was so you could keep an eye on me to make sure you saw this coming from a mile away that I was possibly going to do something. And it's like Sherlock, because Sherlock doesn't want Bell to kind of throw away her career. I mean, it's even more beyond that. I mean, on multiple levels, because the fact of the matter is, like, obviously early in the episode, like Bell had brought up the fact is he doesn't like hospitals. He brought up the fact is about his mom, like she was hit by a car and basically the doctors missed something and her aorta ruptured and she almost died and just like back in the hospital, getting just a bad memory of the hospital. But Sherlock later on deduces, he's like, yeah, it wasn't a car that hurt her. It was physical abuse, wasn't it? That's why he can't handle this situation. Like, that's why he's so, like, pissed about Roy, because knowing that, Roy probably did what he did, it's just, it made him remember what happened to his dad did to his mom, and not just to him, not just to his mom, I assume to both him and his brother. Mainly it was only him that came up in the conversation, but I'm sure his brother as well. Sherlock was like, yeah, he always had a feeling with those type of things, because it's like, never really obviously pursued it or anything like that. So because for Sherlock it's like he doesn't want Bell to kind of ruin his future on this, and I think Sherlock put it so elegantly later on in the episode. It's kind of sad because he kind of sells himself short, but he's like, yeah, I mean, well, to a certain extent he's like, I'm an extraordinary detective, but you are an extraordinary man. It's not just about his career, it's like you would have ruined your life because you are a good man, even better men than I am. And it's like, the last thing I want is for you to ruin your life with this situation, because it's like, you would have done that. Because even Bell later on admits, like, yeah, honestly, thank you for stopping me, because I don't know what I would have actually done if you hadn't gotten to me, like, if you had not done it ahead of time. So, but I do like that basically this all stems from the fact of the matter is that basically this comes back to the wife's lawyer. I mean, like, this guy, he kind of tends to represent all the wives in this particular situation. It turns out, in fact, that this dude, it was basically skimming money from the wives, essentially. Because basically, he tell the wives, like, he's supposed to be investigating their husbands and everything. Well, he lies about how much money the husbands actually have, so they end up getting a lesser cut of what their husbands actually have, and the husbands get to keep a larger chunk of their fortune, and he gets a kickback on it. And it's like, the reason why he was able to get Roy's piss is because Roy did a cleansing, because everyone that's employed there needs to do a cleanse, because he was smoking weed and everything, so it needed to be cleansed for the drug test, and that's how he ended up getting Roy's urine. He paid someone off that had him Roy's urine. So this is all because Roy was closing in. Well, Roy had found out about what he was doing and started blackmailing. It's like, yo, give me a cut of that. Pay Roy off once, but Roy's the type of guy that keeps coming back. And so he was like, I'm not about to deal with that type of situation again. So he enacted this whole plan. So, like I said, a very intricate case, like twists and turns. Like I said from the beginning, I was not expecting those twists and turns. I appreciate them, though. But luckily, in the end, I think everyone can kind of feel the way Bell feels. It's like, I'm not necessarily sad about the whole Roy situation, but at the very least, I mean, did he deserve it? No. Was he a piece of crap human being? Yeah. But, luckily by the end of the episode, we do hear that Chantal is okay, and, she is doing good. So, there was kind of an interesting conversation. Like, earlier I brought up the fact of Sherlock saying Bell being a good man. It's because Sherlock kind of knows. He's like, I'm not going to pretend like I understand, like, where, like, having been in your situation dealing with, like, possibly, abuse and stuff like that. But he's like, he knows what that can do to someone, because, like, he wasn't necessarily physically abused by his dad. I mean, not that we really know, but his dad kind of mentally abused him a lot. I mean, as we even got to see more of it last season, when his dad kind of, like, there was a moment where Sherlock was going after him and bringing up his mom and stuff like that. And to spite Sherlock, he threw into Sherlock's face, yeah, your mom was a junkie. It's like, oh, I guess it runs in the family or something like that. I guess that's what you got your need for drugs from. It came from your mom or something like that, That was something he threw into Sherlock's face out of spite, but he always kind of made Sherlock almost feel not good enough. So he knows where that level of, like, a parents, they're supposed to be there to protect you, and kind of the person that's supposed to protect you and love you, when they kind of go and do the opposite, like, he knows what that, because that cuts deeper than anything else, being betrayed by someone that's supposed to love you and take care of you like that. So, that's me inferring. To me, it seems like they're pretty heavily inferring that, like, whole situation with his dad. There was a moment I kind of skipped over it. It was just part of the investigation. I thought was kind of interesting. Kind of Sherlock doing what he does. Sherlock's trying to get information at, like, a particular club place. Obviously, get access to their tapes to see if Roy really was investigating, like he said he was at the time of Chantal's attack. But basically he had an actor be showed around the facility, and then Sherlock's like, yeah, so basically there's a guy this guy that you're walking around with, yeah, he's a hired actor by me, and basically he resembles a well-known criminal, and it's like, if I start circulating this picture to like the authorities, say, hey, you start it's caused some problems for you. It's like, that's some dirty tactics. I like it. I don't know, it's just kind of interesting, like, I would never, the way his brain works, I'm like, oh, how I could circumvent certain things like that. Because it's like, oh, I knew from the very beginning you wouldn't willingly show me, like, any videotape footage because your clients, want discretion and all that. So, but overall, a very good episode. I'm glad that things had a very happy ending to a certain degree. I mean, not so happy for Roy, but I mean, Chantal, like I said, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters, Chantal's okay, so that's good. And also, like, this whole situation too, character development wise, it's like, hey, you have Sherlock and Belle becoming even closer. It's like, hey, you want to go to this? Have you ever eaten ants before? What? Ants? Have you ever eaten them before? Like, there's this great insect restaurant. So let's, you want to try it out? He's like, I mean, I'll watch you eat it. At least I'll try and watch. It's like, okay, let's go. So, like I said, very good episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.